Welcome back, troglodytes, to your daily dose of guitar information, the Trogly's Guitar Show. We've got an update to the Trade Tuesday series this week. You're going to notice these boxes have already been opened, and it's all because of this dumb GoPro. It didn't record, so I've got the B camera and the C camera footage of it, so I don't know, maybe I can blend it together to make this seem real. So just as a quick recap here, we started with the toy guitar. It kind of split off into 4 different things. I still have the 60s, 70s manual, as well as the 70s pickup card if you guys are interested. But those guys kind of moved on to the Hondo Death Dagger, which then kind of split apart into the Electra Omega Les Paul and the T-Rex Spin Doctor pedal. Man, you guys absolutely hate Electra guitars. That comment section was absolutely toxic. Okay guys, Electra guitars, even in disrepair shape like that need a little bit of work, they still hold quite a bit of value. So I had no issue selling that thing, and I was able to net $266.50 out of that after all shipping fees, taxes, etc. Now the T-Rex Spin Doctor pedal, that also sold nearly instantly. The only haggle I had on that was a t-shirt to be thrown in, so I took that out of our bank. So altogether, going into this episode, we had $443, of which I spent $400 on what we have here today. We're really close to our goal of a Les Paul Studio. I mean, I probably could have just waited around a long time and ended up getting one of those, but for the sake of the channel here, let's go ahead and do this. So this is the one that I spent $100 for. It was a fan of the show. He asked me if I was interested in this, and I said, you know, that might work out pretty darn well for Trade Tuesday, because I've actually already reviewed one of these things before, but in a different body style. So inside here sleeps an Explorer that has a bolt-on neck. But it's not just any Explorer, this is the Cort Effector Explorer. So that means it's kind of like that Effector Les Paul I did a review on. I think that's been about a year ago now. It's got all these built-in effects. So distortion, we've got chorus, wah, vibrato, delay, and then you can turn it into just a normal guitar like that. And I guess there's also phase inversion for the pickups. But this thing looks super sweet. I mean, you've got kind of that DiMarzio look here. Obviously, they're not DiMarzios, but it's got that aged double creamness going on. Got these strange pink knobs. That's probably due to aging, I would guess. But what I really like about this thing is it almost looks like it has an ebony fretboard. My guess is it's probably Ebenol. I first saw that material when we did the Nouveau Spotlight, so I guess once I take some steel wool to it, I'll be able to tell if that's Ebenol or what's going on here. But I think this was a solid pickup for $100. I think we'll be able to get about $300 to $400 out of this. So this is definitely going to help. And where else are you going to find an Explorer that has a Stratocaster style tremolo unit on it? So this will be fun to check out. And then over here, I spent $300 on this, which I think is actually a pretty darn good deal. I mean, I hate that Trade Tuesday Season 3 has yet to have like an official trade, but I never knew that they made cheaper versions of this guitar. I always just associated it with Steve Vai and being a super high-end thing. Hopefully that gives you guys a hint about what's in here. But this model usually does not come with a case, so that's something that kind of made me enjoy picking this thing up, because it's not something I would normally try. But inside here sleeps an Ibanez Jem. Well, not a real Jem. And no, it's not a fake, it's just a Jem Jr. So I'm guessing they just used cheaper materials on this guy, but they can still offer that Jem shape and body style that eventually went on to birth the RG series in a cheaper format for people who can't afford, you know, the $3,000 plus real ones. You guys gotta let me know, do you want to see one of those Pia guitars on my channel? I mean, I'm not necessarily good enough to represent one of these guitars, but I think the Pia design's kind of interesting with the pedals and things like that. And if you are interested, you gotta let me know what color, because I'm having a hard time choosing. It's probably between the green or pink. I mean, pink is just way far out there. I'm not sure it would be easy to sell on the used market, but I think green would be a nice choice because the white ones seem to be everywhere. So for this episode, I think we'll just leave this one be for now, but let's go ahead and check out this Effector Explorer today.
These Cort Effector guitars were made in the 70s and 80s and were essentially an attempt to create an inexpensive guitar that can do a whole bunch of stuff. You can find body shapes like the Explorer, a Stratocaster, even a Flying V if you're looking carefully. Many collectors are nostalgic over these pieces, so that's why they've started to come up in price lately. And simply because some people are just curious what these effects sound like. Inside the Cort Effector Explorer. Never thought I would say that. Okay, so the pickups in here just appear to be very cheap, generic stuff. But what's really unique about the way that this thing is wired up is you can't actually get the neck and bridge pickups separately. They are always both on. So if you don't have the batteries in here to use the effects, you only have 2 tonal opportunities. So you have it in normal position and you can go in and out of phase. So it's a 2-trick pony unless you're rich and can afford a bunch of batteries. But let's take a look at these pickup cavity rods. I mean, they appear to be pretty clean. They've been shielded off. You can see where the neck joins to the body as a bolt-on right there. And everything looks pretty good in that bridge pickup cavity too. This is looking to me like it's made up out of a bunch of different layers, so it's potentially plywood as well. But at least it looks like solid wood. I don't see any like super seam lines showing anywhere or anything. So it must be stacked up like this, kind of like a pancake body, but a bunch of them. So nothing too special here. I can't really get the ohm resistance readings out of this thing. And we get a Stratocaster styled bridge. So you got 6 individual saddles. And it feels to me like somebody's put a block in the back, and that's what I was thinking of doing anyways. So I'm not too sad about that, but you could likely remove that, and then if you had a bar you could use this. So as far as our controls here, we have a master volume and a master tone, and the speed, it appears to only go to half. So I don't know why it says it goes to 10, but you can hear it click. I'm not sure if that's telling you it's all the way off or all the way on, but that helps control the level of the effects. I went ahead and plugged this in just to make sure things were working. I don't think the wah is working, or I'm just not selecting it right, but most of those effects are functioning in a roundabout way. Last time I demoed one of these effectors, people were saying that if you were to replace all the caps in there, it would probably sound a lot better, because many of them dry up, but we can at least hear what it sounds like as is. It's nothing fantastic. Hate to burst your bubble. But this thing's definitely got some wear and tear. There's some finish checking, scratches. I mean, this is not a collector's piece, but then again, I don't think anybody's really searching out for the perfect collector's condition one of these guys. It's just kind of a fun one to play. And I believe I am right, this is likely an Ibanez fretboard on here. I smelt that burning rubber smell while working on it, so that's what gave me that idea. But hey, that actually looks pretty cool. It kind of feels like a maple fretboard that's been finished over, but I don't think there's actually a finish on top of this. That's just the material. And if you're not familiar with Ibanez, it's like the vintage version of Richlight. Apparently it was used a lot in the 80s. I just haven't ran into it too often. And we've got the acrylic plastic inlays here. But what's really nice is it looks like we've got medium jumbo frets, and they've got a lot of life left to them. The only bad thing I saw was right here. I believe that's the 18th fret. You can see some indentations, so that likely means if you're bending right there, you'll feel that catch. I'm really curious what the scale length is on here. Okay, Gibson scale, 24 3/4. And yes, I know the proper way to do it is at the 12th fret. It's just easier for you guys to visualize and not have to do math if I do it like that. As far as the rest of our specs here, we'll take it at the nut, 1.69, so that's fairly standard. 12th, we're looking at 2.04. Yeah, this is just kind of a standard feeling neck here, 0.82. Then 0.89. It's definitely a nice 60C neck shape profile, so very comfortable for most people. Moving on to the face of the headstock, this one just says Effector by Cort. Some of the later made ones actually have kind of a little bit more of a stylistic design on it. That's just pretty basic. But I dig the cream truss rod cover because it really matches the vibe that they went with the knobs and the pickups, so that's kind of cool. Yeah, that's just your standard Allen key style truss rod in there. And you do have the Gibson Explorer headstock shape here. Moving on to the back here, we can see a bunch of stuff. I mean, besides the wear and tear that obviously you'll see on a black finish, there's not actually a block here. I'm surprised. It's a really stiff feeling. Sometimes you can use your hand to move some trem bridges, but I think it's because somebody's outfitted it with 5 springs. That must be why. I find it interesting that you can see through to the pickup cavity right there. I'm not sure if that was an oversight or if they initially planned to put a ground wire through there or something, because this one comes from the main control cavity right here. And speaking of that, here's what your circuit board looks like for all those effects. Now I'm not going to bother to take it out, but you know, just a printed circuit board right here, and these are your push buttons. That's the difference this time. Instead of flipper switches, you now have a push button. You can see when you push it, it either completes or opens the circuit, and that's what tells it to go. Kind of reminds me of Guitar Hero. And then what goes in this giant cavity is what you need to power this whole circuit. I really appreciate this design. The Gibson version where you gotta pry it and then pluck it open. That is so inconvenient. This guy has got it right. Bam, just like that. This uses two 9-volt batteries, but apparently these do get drained pretty quickly. So if you're really looking for a guitar that has all these built-in effects that's going to last a long time and be inexpensive to operate, this is not necessarily the guitar for you. But I am glad I ended up taking that out, because here's another great way to see all the different layers of wood that makes this thing up. And this back plate also has shielding on it. That's pretty nice. And it looks like we are missing a little piece of this back plate, but it is still intact. And if you look past the finish, you can actually see some wood grain underneath it, so they probably didn't use enough grain filler, but it's kind of nice to see that, you know, it's at least some sort of wood. But this is what I like to see right here, is you actually have a micro tilt adjustment, because just in case your neck angle's off, you don't have to play the shimming game. You at least have that. This guy has a very small neck pocket crack. It's nothing too crazy. Most bolt-on necks do have something like that, so I'm not worried about it. But we've got very old, decrepit strap buttons on here, and one strap button on the bottom, and our output jack plate right there. Then lastly, the neck itself. It's also black like the rest of this guitar, but these tuners, usually I do not have good luck with this style, but these actually feel nice and tight. Sometimes these can go loose. So that was a nice surprise, but we'll have to see if this thing actually stays in tune or not, because these are some pretty extreme angles going into that nut. And it's a pretty good weight too, 8 pounds, 14.7 ounces, so nearly 9 pounds. Well, let's go ahead, plug it in, and hear how this one sounds. So what are my final thoughts on this Effector by Cort guitar? Honestly, I kinda liked this guitar. It actually plays pretty good for its price point. I mean, it's a little bit fret buzzy. Mainly just on that low E. But as far as strumming and everything, everything rings nice and clearly. How's that problem fret? Honestly, you don't notice it. So I think this will make someone a good player. I mean, the tones, the clean channel, it was pretty good. I liked that. But as soon as you throw any type of distortion on it, they were kind of microphonic. As far as the built-in effects, that distortion, it was okay. I mean, it's like a novelty, chunky sound. As far as the other ones, though, I'm just going to go ahead and say that they do not actually work the way that they're intended to. Because there's one setting where it doesn't work at all, and then the chorus setting, it just appears to kind of have a slightly distorted signal. But I think this would be a great project for somebody just to rip all this garbage out and actually put decent pickups in here, because itself as a husk, despite being a huge plywood body, if you get it in the light just right, you can actually see the layers through the paint too. It actually plays pretty good. Definitely no regrets picking this guy up. I had a great time, but then again, Explorers are my favorite Gibson shape after the Les Paul, so it's always a great day when you get one of these. And the looks of it reminds me of an old vintage Dean, because occasionally they would have ones that would look like this and have these style of pickups in them. And as far as the Jem Jr., I've got to say, I love this monkey grip. It's so easy just to swing your guitar about, take it gig to gig. I don't really want to talk too much about this though, because when I experience a Jem for the first time, I want it to be a Jem, not just, you know, the cheaper version of one, because I'm sure one day I'll get into one of those things, because those are beautiful guitars with a lot of history behind them. So this one, it's just going to be a strictly buy, trade, sell type thing on it. I mean, it appears to be in very good shape except for the slight neck pocket crack right here. I'm guessing that might have happened in shipping, but everything seems to be okay on the guitar. You'll just need to get it properly set up. I don't have time to mess around with the Floyd Rose today, sorry. So this is where I leave you this week. We get the Effector Explorer, and we get the Jem Jr. with the case, and I think we got, what, about 40 bucks left over. So you can email me your trade offers at tradetrogly@gmail.com, and you can check the availability of these guys on Reverb. There's a link in the description. Thank you, Troglodytes, for tuning in today. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.